On the surface, it looked like any other match on the women's tour. Bright lights, buzzing crowd, a late evening arena humming with anticipation. Coco Gauff walked onto the court with the same calm expression she always carried. Shoulders steady, steps measured, eyes focused. To the fans watching, nothing seemed unusual. But beneath that composure, beneath the perfectly practiced professionalism, something else was happening. A quiet tension, a pressure she had been carrying for months without saying a word. And on the other side of the net stood Alexandra Eala. Talented, fiery, unpredictable, bringing an energy that felt sharper than usual. Almost pointed. From the first warm-up ball, people who paid attention could sense it. The air felt different, heavier, as if the rivalry had taken on a new shape. Coco stretched, bounced on her toes, and kept her gaze forward, refusing to look Eala's way. And Eala? She did glance. Just once. Long enough to let a faint smirk settle on her face before turning away. It wasn't enough to cause a scene, but it was enough to signal that tonight would not be normal. The match began with intensity, but not the usual kind. Rallies were longer, stares were colder, and neither player offered the other even a hint of respect. To the commentators, it was competitive. To the fans, it was fun to watch. But to the players at courtside and the few journalists who had followed this pairing for months, it was clear something had been brewing long before these opening games. For the past 4 tournaments, this fictional rivalry had become harder to ignore. Small things, subtle jabs, icy handshakes, tense changeovers, moments too quick for the cameras to fully catch, but too pointed for the players to forget. Coco had brushed them off every time, refusing to give the media even a hint of conflict. She had always taken pride in her poise, her ability to rise above noise, above disrespect, above anything that might pull her away from the match. But tonight, that composure was thinning. Between points, you could see it. A jaw clench, a deeper breath, a glance toward her box that looked more like a silent question than a strategy check. Even the way she walked back to the baseline felt different, sharper, faster, as if she were trying to outrun her own frustration. And meanwhile, Eala played with an edge that grew more visible as the match progressed. Delayed serves, long stares, a laugh during a changeover that felt just a little too loud, a little too pointed. And every time it happened, Coco swallowed it, held it down, pretended she didn't notice. But everyone could feel it. She noticed. As the final game approached, the arena buzzed with the feeling that something was about to happen, something beyond tennis points and match statistics. Coco was holding too much inside. Eala was pushing too far. And the invisible line between them, stretched to its limit for months, was about to snap. No one knew it yet, but the moment the match ended, everything would change. And Coco Gauff, the player who never cracked, was about to break her silence in a way no one had ever seen before. Every rivalry has a moment, a single spark that turns quiet tension into open fire. And for Coco Gauff, that moment didn't arrive at match point. It arrived seconds after it. Coco had closed the match with a clean winner, a shot so sharp and confident it should have sealed the night with nothing but respect. She walked toward the net with her hand extended, not out of obligation, but out of professionalism, the same professionalism she had shown even when Eala's behavior had pushed her patience to the edge. But Eala wasn't interested in professionalism tonight. At the last possible second, just as Coco reached the net, Eala shifted her body, pulled her hand away, and brushed past her shoulder with a cold, deliberate bump. It wasn't forceful. It was worse. It was dismissive, like Coco wasn't a rival, not even an opponent, just an obstacle she wanted to push aside. The gasp from the crowd came instantly. The hesitation in Coco's step was even quicker. For a moment, she simply stood there, frozen, stunned, staring at the space where Eala should have been standing. But Eala was already walking off. No eye contact, no acknowledgement, no respect. Just a smirk thrown casually toward her player box, as if she had accomplished exactly what she wanted. To everyone watching, this fictional move looked like nothing more than a disrespectful gesture. But to Coco, it was the final piece in a pattern she had endured for far too long. Because the truth was, the incident didn't start at the handshake. It didn't even start during the match. It began before the first ball was hit. During warm-up, Eala leaned in, pretending to adjust her strings, and whispered a line Coco would replay in her mind for the rest of the night. "Your spotlight ends tonight." 6 words, sharp enough to cut, quiet enough to avoid cameras, cruel enough to feel personal. Coco didn't respond. She refused to give Eala the satisfaction. Instead, she tucked that sentence into the back of her mind and played the entire match with the weight of that whisper pressing against her ribs. But the shoulder bump, that was different. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't coded. It wasn't deniable. It was a statement, a challenge, a declaration that Eala wanted this rivalry to be public, loud, messy, and unforgettable. Coco felt something crack inside her as she walked off the court. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was humiliation, a type of humiliation she had never experienced on a tennis court. Not from legends, not from rivals, not from anyone. And it wasn't just the gesture, it was what it represented. It was month after month of silent disrespect. It was the mocking changeovers, the smirks, the whispers, the subtle gamesmanship. The way Eala always seemed to find a way to dig just deep enough to irritate, but not deep enough to get caught. Tonight, she crossed that line. Tonight, she made her intentions obvious. And Coco, the player known for her poise, grace, and maturity, felt the pressure, finally, undeniably, break. By the time she reached the tunnel leading to the press room, her heartbeat wasn't steady anymore. Her jaw wasn't relaxed. Her breathing wasn't even. She walked faster, her shoulders tight, her hands trembling with frustration she couldn't swallow this time. When she stepped inside the press room, reporters immediately sensed it. The air shifted. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Laptops snapped shut. The room braced itself without even knowing why. Because they all saw it in her eyes. Something had pushed Coco too far. Something had snapped, and Eala's disrespectful move wasn't just a provocation. It was the trigger. The match was over, but the war was just beginning. The press room was silent even before Coco entered, but when she stepped through the doorway, that silence became something else entirely. Heavy, electric, almost dangerous. Reporters who had covered her for years exchanged quick glances because this wasn't the Coco they knew. This wasn't the calm prodigy or the composed champion. This was someone who had reached a breaking point and wasn't going to hide it anymore. Coco didn't sit down gently. She dropped into her chair like every muscle in her body was running on adrenaline. She unscrewed her water bottle, took one sip, and then slammed it onto the table so hard that the microphones rattled. A few journalists instinctively flinched. Others lifted their cameras, suddenly alert. Something was about to happen. Something raw. Something unfiltered. Something they had never seen from her. Coco leaned toward the mic, but didn't speak. She stared at the table, breathing heavily, her expression tight enough to crack glass. A reporter finally opened his mouth to ask the first question, and Coco beat him to it. "Before anyone asks anything," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of fury and exhaustion, "I need to say what I should have said a long time ago." Every camera in the room immediately tilted forward. "This disrespect, this nonsense, this attitude some players think they can get away with, I'm done pretending it doesn't bother me." It was the first time in her career, fictional or otherwise, that Coco had abandoned her media training completely. No filters, no polished answers, no rehearsed lines. Just raw emotions spilling out like a storm she had held back for months. You all saw what happened at the net. And if you didn't, watch it again. That wasn't a mistake. That wasn't heat of the moment. That was intentional. And she knows it. A murmur rippled through the room. Coco didn't stop. That shoulder check, that was the final straw. But it wasn't the beginning. She shook her head, almost laughing in disbelief. For 4 tournaments, I've dealt with the same disrespect. The stares, the delays, the mocking, the little games people pretend not to see. She took a sharp breath. Today, she looked me right in the eyes during the changeover and laughed. Not because something was funny, not because she was relaxed, but because she wanted me to feel small. She wanted me to feel disrespected. A journalist tried to interject softly. "Coco, are you suggesting?" She cut him off. "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you exactly what happened." Her voice cracked, not from weakness, but from the pressure of months of silence breaking all at once. "You think I enjoy sitting here saying this? You think I want headlines about fights and drama?" She slapped her palm onto the table. "No, I want respect. That's it." The room was dead quiet. No camera shutter clicked. No reporter breathed too loudly. Coco leaned closer, her voice lower now, but twice as sharp. "You think I've stayed quiet because I didn't want to be labeled emotional or dramatic or overreacting. But what happened today crossed every line." She swallowed hard. "And I'm tired of letting it slide." A reporter raised a tentative hand. "Do you believe Eala's actions were deliberate?" Coco stared directly into the cameras. "Deliberate?" she repeated. "She walked past me like I was invisible. She bumped my shoulder like I was in her way. And she smiled while doing it. You tell me if that's deliberate." The tension in the room reached a boiling point. Coco's next words pushed it over the edge. "People talk about mental toughness and professionalism, but professionalism doesn't mean letting someone treat you like trash. It doesn't mean staying silent while another player tries to humiliate you." She leaned back, shaking her head, eyes glistening with anger she couldn't hide. "Today was the first time I said enough. And trust me, I meant it." And with that, Coco Gauff, the image of calm, the face of composure, had just delivered the most explosive press conference of her fictional career. The tennis world wouldn't recover from it anytime soon. The press room explosion should have ended the drama. Coco Gauff had spoken her mind loudly, brutally, and without hesitation. But in the modern world, a story doesn't end when a player walks out of a room. It begins when the cameras stop recording and the internet starts talking. Within minutes, the clip of Coco slamming her bottle and calling out Eala's disrespectful stunt was everywhere. Not trending, dominating. Fans didn't just watch it, they dissected every second of it like it was forensic evidence in a crime scene. Someone slowed the clip down to 0.25x speed, replaying Coco's jaw clench frame by frame. Another account zoomed in on the reflection in the metal microphone to try and read the reporter's reactions. It was madness, organized, obsessive madness. Hashtags erupted like fireworks. Hashtag Team Coco. Hashtag Eala exposed. Hashtag tennis drama season. Hashtag press room meltdown. But the internet wasn't united. It split cleanly, violently, into 2 camps. Team Coco insisted she had been pushed too far. They pulled up old footage claiming Eala had been subtly provoking her for months. A cold stare here, a sarcastic nod there. A random clip from a training session suddenly resurfaced, with fans insisting Eala had rolled her eyes behind Coco's back. Never mind that the clip was 2 years old. It didn't matter. Online, time bends for drama. Meanwhile, Team Eala struck back harder than anyone expected. They began circulating the post-match handshake footage in slow motion, insisting Coco had initiated the shoulder contact. Quote, "Look closely," they wrote, circling Coco's foot placement in neon red. "Eala didn't disrespect her, Coco overreacted." Then, The conspiracy theories began. Some claimed Coco's meltdown was planned, a strategic PR move to shift pressure after recent losses. Others spread rumors that Eala and Coco had clashed privately weeks earlier, in the gym, in the dining hall, even during a players-only meeting. None of it was confirmed, but it didn't matter. Online, rumors don't need facts. They just need heat. Commentators weighed in, adding gasoline to the fire. A retired tennis legend said Coco's behavior was immature. Another said Eala had a history of hidden attitude issues. A popular YouTube analyst uploaded a 29-minute breakdown titled "The Real Reason Coco Snapped," the drama nobody wants to talk about. Views, 1.7 million in 12 hours. Even players started reacting indirectly, cryptically. One posted a broken heart emoji, another posted a popcorn emoji, a third reposted Coco's clip with the caption, "Some people finally woke up." Suddenly, the tennis world felt less like a sport and more like a reality show. And through it all, one thing made the entire situation even more explosive. Eala stayed completely, painfully silent. No statement, no denial, no apology. Nothing. And that silence spoke louder than any press conference ever could. It wasn't just a drama anymore. It was a war, and Eala's silence felt like the calm before her counterattack. Weeks later, the incident was no longer a simple match report. It became a legend of modern women's tennis, the moment a rising star refused to stay silent. Headlines described Coco's press room detonation in sensational terms. Fan forums debated it endlessly, and social media algorithms churned out clips for millions of views. Eala's silence remained maddeningly persistent, and her occasional burner posts only added mystery and tension. The rivalry had evolved into more than competition. It had become a cultural phenomenon, a narrative of pride, power, and defiance. Every player, every fan, every commentator knew there were no easy answers. For Coco, the fallout was mixed. Brands called to check on PR implications, friends messaged with concern, and fellow players sent discreet messages of support. But more than any external reaction, Coco carried an internal truth. She had spoken her mind. She had set a boundary. She had challenged disrespect when no one else dared. And the legacy? That was still being written. Some argued that Coco's press room explosion showed emotional maturity, the courage to confront injustice directly. Others claimed it blurred the lines between professionalism and theatrics. Either way, the fictional story left one undeniable truth. Women's tennis had witnessed a confrontation that redefined rivalry, respect, and the power of speaking out. So where does it end? Does Eala finally respond? Does Coco's voice inspire change in how players deal with disrespect? Or is this just the opening act of a war that tennis world isn't ready to contain? The question lingers, and it's one that fans will debate for years. Was this just a rivalry or the beginning of a revolution in women's tennis? What do you think? Was Coco right to explode in the press room, or did Eala have a point in staying silent? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more deep dives into the most controversial rivalries in women's tennis.